Podcast Answer Man, episode number 67. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. Cliff Ravenscraft here. Thank you for all the wonderful feedback from episode 66 and 65. Many of you said that it was exciting to hear the legend Bob Heil being interviewed here in the studio by phone. I'll tell you that I'm still glowing from the honor of receiving a phone call from Bob and having him kind of give an endorsement of the connection, the relationship between podcasters and his products. And so just very excited to have recorded that episode, that interview with Bob. And if you haven't heard it yet, go back to episode number 65. Check out the Podcast Answer Man there. If you've ever heard anything about the Heil PR40 microphone, the guy who designed it, built it, everything, was interviewed, episode 65. Totally awesome stuff there. And then those of you who gave us a lot of feedback regarding episode 66, which was the PodCamp Ohio breakout session, where I got together with just a few other people in a small room over there at the ITT Technical Institute, and we had a wonderful little, I guess, back channel discussion of what we were learning, networking together, sharing ideas and thoughts, and many of you said that you picked up a few ideas and a few new websites as a result of that. I know that I walked away with some new information, and you know, I think I finally got the Plurk bug, and so I'm going to be talking about that in an upcoming episode of the Podcast Answer Man. But today, what I want to share with you is my talk that I gave at PodCamp Ohio, and the title of it was Podcasting as a Career. Now, the description that was printed in the program for PodCamp Ohio, it says that in this session, Cliff will share his story of how podcasting as a hobby eventually led him to leaving his career in insurance after 11 years to pursuing a career in podcasting and new media full-time. Don't miss this session as Cliff shares how he's been able to support his family, wife, and 3 young children through podcasting and new media. And so that's exactly what I did. This episode is just going to be my talk from PodCamp Ohio. And I'm not going to do anything at the end. So at the end of my talk, it's the end of this episode. And with that, here's the talk from PodCamp Ohio that I gave. God bless. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Welcome to the Podcasting as a Career session here at PodCamp Ohio. I'm glad that you guys all were able to choose our session. Come on in. Yes, this is Theory 4. All righty. Oh, no, you're fine. Just enjoy yourselves. So basically, today I'm going to be talking about how I got into podcasting as a hobby and the kind of just share a little bit of the story of how that progressed into a full-time career and basically how that all came about. And of course, I'm going to share with you some of the most frequently asked questions that I am often asked. And of course, I will take plenty of your questions as well. So with that, my name is Cliff Ravenscraft. Before January of this year, and I was an insurance agent in a very small family-run insurance agency. I was an agent for 11 years of my life, and the agency was a family-run agency where I was the son in that family, and it was my mom, my dad, myself, and my sister. In about 5 to 6 years from now, had I continued to stay in the insurance agency, I would be taking over about a $6 million book of business and making an easy 6-figure income guaranteed, no problems, no questions asked. So I left all of that behind and now am podcasting and doing podcasting and new media work full-time as a career. And I have a wife and I have 3 young kids, 8, 6, and 3 years old. A little more background I will let you know is, back in 1996, I was called by God into the ministry. I felt a calling in my life to be a minister. And so I started out as an associate pastor of a small Nazarene church. And of course, I did that part-time while working full-time as an insurance agent.
moved out of that position and became the small groups pastor of a mega church in northern Kentucky where we live. And again, did all that voluntary, part-time, on the side, and doing insurance work full-time. Now, something happened back in December of 2005. A couple months before that, I had been introduced to podcasting. I found my first podcast through Leo Laporte, and I used to follow everything he did on Tech TV, ZDTV, or whatever TV it happened to be at the time. And just absolutely loved Leo Laporte, and I loved a lot of the other personalities that were on this technology-based cable network, because that's where my heart and my passion was. I really love cutting-edge technology. I could sit there and watch that kind of programming or listen to that kind of programming nonstop and never get enough of it. I love to play with new technology. I remember my first computer was a Commodore VIC-20. I remember taking apart my first computer when I was 13 years old and just playing around with technology, always trying to figure out how things work. I'm the type of individual where, when it comes to technology, I've never read a book about technology. I've never read a book about a computer. And so everything I've learned how to do on the internet and through technology, I've learned by seeing the end result and then looking behind the curtains to see what they did in the code to make what you appear on the front happen. And then I've learned how to reverse engineer everything, and that's pretty much my learning process. And so with all of this, it's just like technology was just such a drawing passion for me. And when I saw Tech TV go down, I don't know, anybody in here ever watch Tech TV? All right, how many people in here just felt their heart sink when they learned that it was gone? Exactly. And so it didn't take too long for me to just randomly one day check out Leo's blog at leoville.com. And then, of course, right around the end of Tech TV was when they were just starting to talk about this thing called podcasting. Well, with Tech TV gone, then all of a sudden I didn't have these voices that I turn to all the time to talk about technology and what's the latest and the greatest anymore. I found Leo was doing a podcast of his KFI radio show at the time, and I also found through listening to that he was getting ready to start this thing called This Week in Tech. And of course it was him and John C. Dvorak and Leo and Patrick Norton and Kevin Rose and a bunch of other people that were big names in the tech TV industry and this television geek tech network, okay? And so I'm like, no way, that's awesome. And so immediately I said, okay, I need to learn what a podcast is so I can hear this. And so I immediately started to do some Googling, and it's like I started to read. It's like, okay, you can get it through a podcatcher. I started to find out about iTunes and things. It was called iPodder back then, and some other technologies that would allow you to subscribe to podcasts. And so I started to play around with that, and I subscribed to This Week in Tech. And then all of a sudden one day I heard Leo Laporte talk about Father Roderick and Adam Curry and all these other things, because they were all talking about this new thing called podcasting. And so, well, I want to learn more about this. And so I started listening to Adam Curry, and I listened to this Catholic priest in the Netherlands named Father Roderick, who today is a friend of mine, which is really wild. It's just really neat because my eyes were opened to a whole new world of just free-flowing information. No longer did I have to worry about missing Leo Laporte on television to find out what he talked about on the screensavers, although they did play it several times. But what was cool is now I could be driving in my car, I could be walking on the treadmill, which you can tell I do that a lot, doing anything in my ears. And the cool thing was, with podcasting, I could listen to him when I want, where I want. The rules were all changed. I used to be a talk radio addict. Okay, I listened to talk radio all the time. If I'm in the car, the radio is on. And there were times when I would go to a client's house, and I would be sitting in the parking lot or in the driveway or wherever, and it's like, okay, I'm not gonna go in until I finish hearing what they had to say. None of that existed for me anymore, because now it's as simple as pushing pause on the iPod player or the MP3 player or whatever happens to be. I no longer have anybody telling me when I'm going to listen to something, what I'm going to listen to on this station or that station. The rules were changed. I'm in total control over my content going into my mind, into my ears, and everything. It completely changed the way that I receive content. I found this podcast called The Transmission. I was watching the TV show Lost. I've been an avid blogger well before blogging ever existed, so I love the technology of blogging. And I used to blog a lot. And so one of the things I was blogging about was the TV show Lost. Anybody here watch the TV show Lost? One person. I was blogging about Lost. Every episode, I would sit there and say, okay, I'm going to go out to the internet. I know that they showed us something in this one scene, and it only flashed for a second, and I am going to go get that screen capture, and I'm going to show everybody that's reading my blog that this was there, because they totally had to have missed this if you're just a casual viewer. And what would happen is just hundreds of people were coming to my blog just to see what I had found about the TV show. And it got me to thinking, you know what? All of this started to happen at the same time. It's like podcasting. I'm listening to podcasting. People are interested in reading my blog entries, and I love to type and write out stuff and have people read it. But one of the things that I learned a long time ago, and you probably already picked a little bit up on it, is that I like to talk. And I thought, oh my gosh, I could do a podcast. And so I started out with a cheap little HP laptop, and I went out to Walmart or Best Buy, I can't remember which, and I bought a little headset microphone and plugged it into the audio input on my computer, downloaded the program called Audacity, which was absolutely free, and I spoke into my first podcast recording on December 16th, 2005. And I said, folks, my name's Cliff Ravenscraft. I just learned about podcasting not too long ago. I've been listening to these podcasts. I've been thinking about starting my own podcast. So this is my podcast, and it's called Generally Speaking. The reason why the title is called Generally Speaking is because I was thinking about, okay, I want to do a podcast, and I'm going to do a podcast, but I can't think for the life of me what to settle on. Should I podcast about the TV show Lost? Should I podcast about technology? Or should I podcast about my faith? And so, you know what? Rather than decide one or the other, how about what I'm going to do is it's going to be called Generally Speaking. And so one episode might be devoted all to Lost, one episode might be devoted all to technology, one episode, and what it'll say episode 001, and then it'll say Lost dash and then the title, or technology dash the title. And I'm like OCD. I'm sitting there thinking, how am I going to do this so that people who only want to hear the Lost content only get the Lost content? Well, the first episode I did after that was a Lost podcast, and I got my wife and my next door neighbor Rachel, and the three of us sat down after an episode, after I had some time to research some stuff, and we talked about the show and all the stuff that I had found on the internet. And we would, just having the most awesome conversation, just laughing, sharing our passion for this TV show. And I put it out on iTunes and made it available. And the first episode was listened to by 300 or 400 people right off the bat. And within no time at all, I had several thousand people. And I'm talking within the first 3 or 4 episodes. And so we had some immediate results from this Lost podcast edition of the Generally Speaking podcast. And in essence, I had some people saying, you know what? I love this. You guys have to keep podcasting about Lost. In fact, if you keep podcasting about Lost and you set up a PayPal account, I will donate money to you to continue to podcast about Lost, because the way you guys talk about it is fun and entertaining, and I really get a lot of enjoyment out of it. I said, okay, we'll podcast about Lost. And it immediately became obvious to me that the Lost fans are very particular. They like Lost content. They don't like a lot of non-Lost content. So I realized very quickly that I was not going to be able to get by with putting other content into this feed. So I realized, you know what? This podcast, I'm going to make the official decision, and I think I did it by episode number 3, that this is the weekly Lost edition of the Generally Speaking podcast network at the time. You notice it says production now. But anyway, that's basically the progression of what happened. I started podcasting, and I called myself a podcast network when I only had one podcast. But the second one I started was called My Crazy Life. I wanted to just start a talk. I wanted to do something that was more in line with the generally speaking. And so I wanted to be able to talk about my faith. I wanted to be able to talk about technology and all of these other things. And so I started this podcast called My Crazy Life, which I think I'm right around episode number 240-something of that podcast, if you're interested. So I went from here down to My Crazy Life. And My Crazy Life is, the way I explain it is, it's an audio journal. And if you can imagine somebody taking their innermost thoughts, I mean, without really editing any thoughts, stream of conscious, writing down their deepest thoughts, and then all of a sudden, if you can imagine, if somebody were to lose that journal and somebody else pick it up and read it, well, guess what? That's My Crazy Life. That's what I do. I get in front of a microphone. I share all of my most exciting moments. I share some of my most vulnerable moments. There have been times when I've literally gotten in front of the microphone and cried. There have been times when I was downright depressed. I mean, it all goes into My Crazy Life. And so I started to share this. And the thing is I found that there were a lot of people who were interested in this podcast, but when I got into the faith-based stuff, I don't mind listening. I really enjoyed listening to your life, but there's some of the stuff you want to talk about. It's all very much Christian-oriented. Well, what I did is I started a third podcast called About the Church. And so this was a podcast devoted simply to talking about Christianity and faith and just never at the point of telling you what to believe and why you should believe it, but what I believe and basically what I'm studying, what I'm learning, and how I struggle with or how I'm trying to live out my faith in my day-to-day life. And that became the About the Church podcast. And so what happened is I started to get just literally hundreds and then thousands of people who are listening to these podcasts. And what happened is I started to build relationships with people. It started out with email. It started out with blog comments. Lots of people were leaving blog comments. I would actually do the podcast. I would release it into the blog. All the show notes would be in the blog. And we'd get to the point where we were running about 65, 70 comments for every podcast entry that I would put out there. And then all of a sudden somebody says, Cliff, why don't you do a forum? And that way the conversations can be more threaded and they can continue to go on. So we started a forum. Then all of a sudden people were interacting with each other in the forum and with me. I started to build relationships with people through interacting with email. People started emailing me a lot. And I found that after a while I had about 400 or 500 people that I'm interacting with on a weekly basis. 300 or 400 people on a weekly basis is a lot of people to interact with. And what I found is that I can't do it all. And so I tried to find a way to build a community where the people would interact with each other, and I'm not responsible for directly responding to each and every person, which I will tell you, if you send me an email, I can guarantee you will get a response from me within 24 hours, pretty much guaranteed. I believe in that because I believe in relationships. And for me, I don't care if I have, right now we're running right between 20 to 30,000 people who download our podcasts. I don't care if I have 20 to 30,000 people. In fact, I'm really only ultra concerned right now with about 400 to 500 of them, because 400 to 500 of them consider themselves to be a part of this, the GSPN.TV community. And what that means is there are about 400 to 500 people. If you go to gspn.tv/forum, you will see them there. And those are the same people you will see interacting with each other and with me at twitter.com/GSPN. Who are also the same people you'll see interacting with me regularly through Facebook. You'll also see those are the same people in here that are interacting with me as I'm broadcasting live, recording shows on the internet, interacting with them during the show, taking their live calls while we're recording at gspn.tv/live. They're also the same people where 3 times now we've had Northern Kentucky meetups where we've had people travel from Chattanooga, Tennessee, from Michigan, from Chicago, from New York, from all over, from Texas, a bunch of other states, to where, when we get together and we have what we call the Lost season premiere party, or we'll have this Lost season finale party. 35, 40 people from all over come to Northern Kentucky, traveling just to watch a TV show with me and my wife. That is the community. That is the relationships that we're building with each other online. What happened was, I was a pretty successful insurance agent. I loved my career in insurance prior to podcasting. I will tell you that. I absolutely loved insurance. I was ranked in the top 50 out of 14,000 agents with Grange Mutual Life Insurance. But the thing is what I found is that I was at the insurance agency working every day. And I was checking my email probably 4, 5, 6 times an hour, responding to people who were contacting me. Now, these weren't just like, hey, Cliff, what do you think about Lost? Oh, did you see that episode? And I'm not responding to that because that stuff I push off to the forum and I say, listen, I love the fact that, you're contacting me about the TV show, but really we do most of our content and discussion of that in the podcast. Why don't you post it to the forum? There are tons of people out there that will respond to that, and I think that if you could let everybody benefit from your theory, that would be awesome. But do me a favor, anytime you want to email me personally, tell me what's going on in life and just share yourself personally, relationally, I'm here. I will respond to you. And so I had a guy in the Netherlands who emailed me and says, listen, Cliff, I'd like to ask you if you don't mind, if it's not too personal, and tell me if it is. My mom's a Christian and my dad's a Muslim, and they recently divorced, and neither one of them really practiced their faith much as I was growing up. And now that my dad has met somebody new and she's a Muslim woman, he is now reaffirming his life to the Muslim faith and has said that if I don't also convert to the Muslim faith, that he will no longer have a relationship with me. He says, would you do me a favor? Would you please tell me why do you believe that the Christian God is the one true God? And I sat there, I said, do you mind if I record an episode of My Crazy Life? I'll leave your name out, I'll leave your location, I'll leave all those really personal details out. But do you mind if I take your question and then answer it in a podcast? And he says, sure. Well, actually, it turned out to be 2 podcasts, and you can go to gspn.tv, and up in the search box, you can type in the phrase Finding Faith. And you'll see Finding Faith Part 1 and Finding Faith Part 2. And in that, I shared, for the first time in my podcasting experience, how I came to be a Christian and how I got to share that. And through that podcast episode, 4 months later, this guy calls me back or emails me back and says, listen, I don't know if you remember me. I sent you that thing. You answered it in the podcast. I want to let you know that a couple months ago, just after hearing your episode, I gave my life to Jesus Christ. I am now a Christian. I finally, just recently, told my dad about it. And my dad still loves me and wants to have a relationship with me. And I found a great church, much like the one that you told me that I should look for, and I'm growing in my relationship and my understanding of who God is. That is what got me. That is what got me. I realized for the first time that God had called me to ministry. And I knew one day, and my mom and dad asked me to come work for them in insurance. And the very first thing they asked me to do, they said, Cliff, will you come and help us get our computer network set up? Because we're buying this agency management software for our clients, and we have no idea what we're doing. We know that you know how to use technology, and you'll figure it out. And so can you do that? And I said, Mom, Dad, I will, as long as you'll promise me 2 things. And they said, what's that? Number 1, you'll promise me that if I ever find an opportunity to do ministry full-time, regardless of what the pay is, you will not give me a hard time if I choose to go into ministry full-time. They said, okay, no problem. So number 2, you promise me that you'll never try to force me to get my insurance license to sell insurance. And they promised me. Now the thing is, I got in there, I set up the computer systems and everything, and it all worked out. And I'm sitting there just answering the phones and helping them out with customer service. And my dad says, well, you're already quoting these policies for me and stuff like that, and you're just giving me the quotes. Do you realize that you could probably make a couple extra $1,000 just if you had your license? Because right now I technically can't pay you for those quotes. But if you were to call them back and give them the quote, which is basically you quote it, I call them, give them the price, they come in, sign the papers, and it's done. If you go out and get your license, you could have that commission. And I'm like, really? And so I did it. And I'll be honest with you, I got into auto and home and property and casualty insurance for the money. I got into life insurance later for the travel benefits. Eventually I learned there was more to this than the money and the travel benefits, and I started to think about the people's lives that were there. And I went to a lot of sales training seminars. Very, very awful sales training seminars. things that were just completely against every single principle and value that I have. As far as putting yourself in a situation where you're sitting in a certain way, putting yourself in their personal space and to throw them off of their comfort zone so that eventually you can put that pen and that piece of paper for a big, huge, gigantic life insurance policy in their face and they will sign it. And then you get the big commission check. And then, by the way, and if you only sell 5 of those, you can live for the year. And so, it's like, that is not right. And so I decided I would not do that. And so I started to feel this pressure about, what am I in this for? Am I in here to hurt or to serve people and help people? Or am I in this just to make money? And is this all about money? And I will tell you, it was very appealing for me to think about taking over the agency, this very successful agency, to making lots of money and all those other things. And I'm not opposed to making lots of money, trust me. I'm not. But what I realized is that I definitely felt like there was something more important in life. And it was relationships with people, and it was sharing my life in such a way that it made a difference. And basically, this is what it all came down to. I found out through podcasting the reason why I was spending all day long at the insurance agency checking email, checking the forums, and all these other things, because I felt a calling in my life to be a person who entertains people, educates people, encourages people, and inspires people. And every single day I was getting emails about people that tell me, Cliff, I listen to you and I just want to say thank you because you enhance my entertainment value in this TV show, this TV show, this TV show. And you guys are just so entertaining. And I would, and the reason why I support what you're doing or donate to what you're doing or whatever is because I would pay for entertainment that I get at a movie theater. Why shouldn't I pay you? And then I was told, and I had a hard time catching this, but a lot of people told me that they follow me and listen to everything that I'm doing because they're inspired to do something better, to better themselves because of what they see me doing. And I'm like, really? No way. And it took me a long time, and people were starting to say, Cliff, you don't understand this. I listen to you. One day you're going to be doing this full time. And I'm like, whatever. I seriously thought it was a joke. But people told me over and over again, you're going to do this one day for a living. This is what you're going to do. And eventually one day, my commission checks at my insurance job were like this. I mean, I was making no commission. 0. Because I wasn't selling anything. I got to the point where all I would do at my job would be service the current clients I already had. And I would give them the best service that anybody could ever give them. But I had no desire, no drive in me ever anymore to go out and make a new sale. And that did something to me. One of the things I feel strongly about is that I'm called to be an honest employee. And I believe that if my job and my career, whether my mom and dad is my employer or not, my job, my career is paid to not only do the customer service work for the agency, but also to help grow the agency financially so that the agency can be profitable. It's a business. Then for me to not sell equates, in my mind, to stealing from the company. If I'm spending 4 or 5 hours of my day answering email, encouraging others, inspiring others, and entertaining others, and all this stuff, and all I'm thinking about is podcasting, then in my mind, if I'm spending all those hours over there, I am stealing from the family business. At least that was what was going on in my head. And I tell you, this is where the My Crazy Life stuff started getting really, this is where I'm like, guys, I'm telling you, I'm struggling here. I don't know what to do. It's not like I haven't realized that I have no drive. I'm trying to get a drive. I'm trying to build. I don't know what happened. And just through the support and encouragement of my pastor, of my wife, some very close people to me, I just asked them to come along and just pray with me and pray for me and to work this out. And I said, honestly, there's absolutely no way do I see right now that I can make a living doing this. Just not. I see maybe 5 years down the road, but not right now. It's just not possible. And so, let's see here. I should probably get some new AA batteries. Don, would you open these for me? Yep. And bring me 2 of them when they're open? Thank you. So anyway, I got to the point where I realized, I am not doing what I should be doing, and there's no way I can make this. So what do? And I decided, it was June of 2007, last year. It was a year ago. I decided I'm going to quit pursuing podcasting. I'm only going to podcast for the fun of it. I was making some money doing podcasting, and I was pursuing a couple things, had some sponsors here and there. And I decided, you know what? This is taking too much. I cannot do this anymore. I have to focus all of my energy and all of my attention. I'm going to ignore any email that comes in regarding the podcast between the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. During the day, no way whatsoever am I going to do anything podcast related. Absolutely nothing. And here's the situation. What happened? I became the most depressed individual you'll ever meet. I literally lost all passion for life. I'm not kidding. I woke up in the morning and I thought to myself, I need to get out of bed and I need to go to work, but I don't want to. I have a beautiful wife and I have 3 kids, and I should be excited and I should be exuberant about the fact that they're healthy and that we have this wonderful house, and that in today's economy that I have a job that provides me such security and all of these other things. And I tried to pump myself up. I tried to encourage myself. I tried to inspire myself, to no avail. I literally went months just treading along. I couldn't do it anymore. And so for me, what happened was I got to the point where I decided I have to do something. And I felt to myself, I said, Stephanie's my wife, by the way. She comes to me and she goes, Cliff, you're absolutely miserable and you're a pain in the butt to live with right now. And she goes, there is no doubt in my mind that eventually down the road, you will be doing podcasting, new media work full time. No doubt whatsoever. And there is absolutely no reason right now that we shouldn't give it everything and do this. And so I think it's episode number 150 of My Crazy Life. And if you want to, go listen to it. And if that's not it, email me, cliff@gspn.tv. I will get you the right episode number. We recorded the most difficult podcast I've ever recorded in my life. It was the night that we had decided I was going to go and talk to my dad the next day and tell him that I want to put in a 90-day notice, that I'm going to leave the insurance career behind, and I'm going to go into podcasting, new media full time. And can I tell you something? I had no clients. I had no sponsors. I had no way of making any money whatsoever. No clue about how I was going to make money. I just knew one thing for a fact, that it was what I was supposed to do. That's all I knew. I knew that my calling in life at that point was entertaining, educating, encouraging, and inspiring other people. And I was getting confirmation left and right from all the people that would listen to any of these shows. There's something... if you look at this, these podcasts are not podcasts on my network produced by all the different people. What you see here are 17 podcasts. I produce all of them. The reason why is because I feel compelled all the time to share my life. If I read a book, I want to not just read the book to better myself. I want to immediately turn the microphone on and share what I'm learning about that book with other people. Matter of fact, going through this whole process in My Crazy Life from 150 on, you get to hear what it's like for somebody who has no understanding of how to run your own business.
Do you do all your sponsors yourself?
Yes.
And you don't use like Todd Cochran's agency or anything?
I looked into all of those. All of them offered me contracts. I had to turn them all down because of my method of going forward based upon relationships and not 150,000 subscribers. The networks wanted they all offered me the fact that they could make me tons and tons of money from big corporation sponsorships if I would, instead of doing this, I would go to maybe this, and this. And if I did 3 shows and grew the audience to those 3 shows to 150,000 people, I could probably make $150,000 a year in sponsorships. And I said, you can't take these away. You can't. These are who I am. And so I didn't go that route.
I would like to do what you turned down.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit? All of a sudden, it jumped to sponsors and this kind of.
Yep.
How did you make these?
Sure.
How does that work?
Well, here's the thing. Just wanted to give you the understanding of, because none of this makes sense unless you hear the background of how I got into this. So let me just tell you, the number one question, how in the world are you going to make a living doing podcasting? The most annoying question I ever heard from September of 2007 all the way through January 1st. Every single time somebody asked me that question, my heart sunk deeper and I thought, what in the world have I gotten myself into? How do I make money? I will go ahead and start sharing that part of the story. Podcasting as a career and what I've learned. Number one, I learned sponsorship by going to all the other things. Of course, somebody in here already mentioned they attended today a wonderful session on sponsorship. Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to make $20 a week with your podcast through GoToMeeting.com, you can certainly do that today. Okay, anybody here can live off of $20 a week? No. Sponsorships, I learned very quickly. The only way you're going to make a living doing sponsorships is through, one, at the most, 2 shows with an audience of 150,000 or more people. Now, with that, I will tell you that is going to change. About 5 to 7 years from now, you will be able to have a podcast with 1,000 subscribers, and you'll be able to make a living. If it is a niche audience, and those people are so devoted to that very niche. Runner's Endurance Radio is one of them that's become really popular. You know, it's basically endurance runners. Listen to this podcast about endurance running. And of course, people who sell energy supplements for people who are runners. If you have 2,000 or 3,000 people who listen to that podcast, guess what they will do? They will pay you money to reach that demographic. This right here I learned is very difficult. Number one, you have to spend time and you have to call them. What I decided was that I was not going to go towards sponsorships. I kind of said, you know what? I'm not going to not do sponsorships, but I'm not going to depend on sponsorships. So here's what I decided. This is where I would put all my eggs. I'm not going to, you know what? I do this for the passion. All of this, I would do this if I didn't make a penny. I mean, in fact, I did for 2 years. Okay? I wouldn't mind going out and getting a job selling myself out as a consultant. So for $95 per hour, you can hire me to teach you how to podcast. And some people look at that and they said, yeah, right. And you know what? Those people, I say, well, you know what? Go to podcastanswerman.com and I'll teach you how to podcast for free. But if you don't want to listen to hours of content about me doing podcasting, you can spend just a couple hours with me at $95 an hour and I'll teach you how to do it. And you know what? I have a lot of people who pay me $95 an hour to consult them on podcasting. Not only that, so this became pretty successful for me. One of the things I realized is that in my consulting, a lot of my clients wanted my expertise in the area of what equipment to use for their specific needs. Well, I started buying equipment and building that into packages, and I came across this wonderful professional broadcasting audio equipment supply company that said, Cliff, I'll tell you what, you're ordering so much equipment from us that we would like to bring you in as a dealer. And you won't have to do any inventory. You take the orders, you call us, we'll open you up a credit account. We will directly ship to them blind, which means that none of their name goes on anything, only my name. They get the product, it appears that it comes from me. They invoice me, I invoice the client, and once a month I pay them. I make a great deal of profit from equipment sales. Don, do you know who called me 2 days ago?
I believe it was a man named Bob Heil.
Bob Heil. Bob Heil from Heil Sound called me personally 2 days ago, out of the blue. I had no idea it was coming. He called me personally to thank me for all the sales of Heil microphones. And so that was amazing to me. So equipment sales is another way that I made money. One of the things I realized is, how many people in here think that $95 an hour is too much to learn how to podcast? Well, number one, you can come here and do it for free, right? The truth is you can go online and learn how to do it for free. I still believe I believe that I am worth every single penny of this because of 2.5 years of experience, and all the things that I did wrong, you're going to avoid because I did it all wrong, and I'm going to tell you how to do it right the first time. And you're not going to have to spend all the time that I did scouring the internet, staying up until 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 days a week, trying to figure out how to make all this stuff work. But there are still some people out there that I realize that are in my community that they can't afford to pay me $95 an hour. And you know what? They need a little bit more than they're getting from podcastanswerman.com, which is my podcast on podcasting. So instead, I created these things called webinars. And so for $75, if you're a non-GSPN.TV Plus member, or if you are a Plus member, for $50, you get 2 hours, sometimes up to 3 hours if you need to stay afterwards and ask me additional questions. I share my desktop with you and 9 other people. And for $75 or $50, you get to attend my Podcasting 101, my WordPress for Podcasters 101, my open lab where you can ask me any questions about how to do Skype recordings and not lose your recordings, audio recording for PC users 101, and I also do free equipment consultation webinars. You know, I make anywhere between $500 to $750 for 2 hours of my time. That's another way that I learned as a podcaster I can make money. The truth is, though, let me tell you something. Go to CorvetteChief.com sometime. I love this client. Oh, dear Lord. Okay, 5 minutes or less and I'm out of here. Okay, so CorvetteChief.com. Dave McClellan, Chief Engineer of Corvette from 1975 to 1992. He was my first client. Best client I could ever dream of having because he's so high profile. And basically, he's preserving the history of the Corvette in an audio podcast. He paid me not only $95 an hour to set up his website, to set up his RSS feeds, to consult him, and not only did he buy all of his professional audio equipment for his studio in his home, but he does not want to do the production work. He wants to go out and record interviews with 90-year-old people who worked on the Corvette creation. And he does that. And then he calls me up on the phone and says, Cliff, I'm ready to have you walk me through once again how to FTP up this recording. And I bring it down and I listen to it and I edit it down to an episode, taking out all the ums and the ahs and the interruptions and all that other stuff. And I put it out on the podcast for him. Guess what? Word gets out. Next thing you know, I'm doing too much of this. I'm doing so much of this, I'm getting burned out. And I'm sitting there thinking, I've lost my passion. These shows are my passion. And somebody asked me, they said, Cliff, where do you want to be in 5 years from now? And it wasn't here, and it wasn't here. So that's where this came from. I said, you know what? In 5 years from now, I want to do this for a living. I want to be entertaining, educating, encouraging, and inspiring to people all around the world. And I would love to make a living doing that full time. The person says, where do you want to see yourself in 5 years? I knew the answer immediately upon him asking it. And he says, do me a favor. He says, listen, every single day take one baby step towards making that a reality. And that's where this came from. GSPN.TV Plus membership. I release a lot of content. I build a lot of relationships with a lot of people. And they love what my wife and I do. And they believe in what my wife and I do. And especially, even more so, this stuff right here, the faith-based stuff that I do. I'm reaching tens of thousands of people every week with our content. And you know what? Somebody said, Cliff, why don't you consider charging? Don't charge for all of this content, but instead, for $10 a month, you'll give them additional content that nobody else gets. Additional content so you don't pay $10 a month for any one of our podcasts. Every one of these podcasts listed on here, you can subscribe to all of them in iTunes for free. And in every one of them, you will get free content. A majority of all the content on all of them for free, if not all of the content. In fact, we do have sponsors now. Mardel.com. Mardel.com. Guess what they are? Christian online bookstore. They believe in all of the stuff that we're doing. I won't tell you how much, but I make a good deal of money per episode. I don't do CPM. In fact, I was just in Investors Business Daily. You can go to, just do insurance agent lost obsession and do that as a search in Google, and you'll find me on Investors Business Daily. But anyway, I'm making money from this. I started this just about a month and a half ago. I have 125 people paying me $10 a month right now. My goal is to get to 1,000 by the end of next year. I'll be making $10,000 a month doing this. That's how I do podcasting and new media for a living. But until then, honestly, what is 10 times 125? $1,250 a month. That does not feed a family of 5. So until then, I would ask each of you guys to consider if you need consulting, equipment sales, if you'd like to sponsor, if you want me to do production for you, if you'd like to attend a webinar, or if you want to start listening to this stuff and you really believe in what I'm doing, consider becoming a Plus member. And that's my talk. Thank you.